This episode is brought to you by Bleacher Report. How do you follow sports? From college football to the NBA, Bleacher Report brings you the latest news, live scores, and epic highlights from your favorite leagues, teams, and athletes, all in one app. Dive into exclusive shows hosted by your favorite athletes and original Bleacher Report series with breaking news, rumors, and predictions all season long. Download Bleacher Report to personalize your coverage.
By the time you're finished listening to this Pepsi Zero Sugar, you'll be 15 seconds closer to kickoff. Stock up now. Bengals game day is so close, you can almost taste it. Bengals watching. Better with Pepsi.
There's no better feeling than a personal win, and the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Old Skool on Anfield Index Pro. Now, normally this show would begin with a man shouting, gagging at me. Well, no, he would be shouting David at me and I'd be shouting, gagging back at him. But Mr. Tamlin is unavailable today. So, we have gone for an Anfield Index OG to step in. Mr. Michael von Herff of Ottawa, Canada. How are you, sir?
Dave! Michael!
Tremendous.
From you. I was missing out on saying Gagan to my friend Gags. So I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. It had been far too long since we had spoken. We've had a nice chat before we started recording to catch up on some things, but it had been far too long. So you're a proper Anfield Index OG. You go back with this channel 8-9 years.
Yep. You know what's funny, Dave? I was looking at, like, you and I had been in contact, and then actually spent a fair bit of time in person together when you were in Canada. But we've been in contact, 2014, 2015, and I did some shows back in that early Klopp era. But the first time you and I were on a call together with Gags was famously after the 6-1 or 1-6 against Southampton in the quarterfinals of the League Cup in 2015.
Is right. That's the Daniel Sturridge hat-trick game, isn't it?
Oh, no. Divock had the hat trick.
Oh, the Divock hat-trick game.
So, and I went back and looked at the line from that game. And the funny thing is, we won. 7 goals were scored in that match, and all 7 were scored by Liverpool players, because the one Southampton goal was scored by one in the first minute by one Sadio Mane.
Is right. Sadio, a scourge before we signed him.
I know, hey? He was, but he wasn't getting red carded. He was scoring goals at inopportune times.
Yeah, what a player. So, before we get into too much of the football, Mr. von Herff, I do have to make the point that we did spend quite a bit of time together when we were in Canada, when we could, because obviously I was in Toronto, you were in Ottawa, so it was only when you had traveled down. But myself and my better half have discussed on many occasions in the years since we've come back from Canada that our biggest regret is not listening to you, because we were there about 2 weeks and you said to us, you guys should really move to Ottawa. You should move to Ottawa. Ottawa you will prefer to Toronto. And we should have listened. and we should have moved to Ottawa, because in the time since, we have multiple friends who've gone to Toronto, because that's where Irish people go, and then moved to Ottawa and decided to stay there and love the place. And I don't know anyone from here that's ever moved to Toronto and stayed.
Isn't that interesting? Well, I think the reason is I'm from Toronto originally, and that's why I knew moving to Ottawa is such a great thing. I think it's a city on a scale that people from countries like Ireland, I think, could be comfortable with. These sprawling North American cities that are bound together by 8 and 12 lane highways, they're quite foreign to people who are from smaller cities and just used to the way things work in Europe. And Ottawa is just a very livable place. So I regret it immensely. Your podcasting empire would have been a great outpost.
Yeah, and I think there's also, obviously you're close to Quebec there, so you've got a lot of European influence in Ottawa as well, in terms of just your architecture and your planning and such, which again I think would have been more comforting to us than, like you said, the big kind of sprawl that is Toronto, which, for those that don't know, it was 6 smaller cities that amalgamated into a mega city, Mel Lastman. A dreadful set of lads. That we have spoken at length, myself and my better half, about how we really should have listened to Von Herff. And every time we get frustrated with being here and think, why did we come home? Every time that conversation goes to, we really should have listened to Von Herff. Von Herff told us 2 weeks in, you will prefer Ottawa. And we thought, we'll give this place a chance, because we had been sold on it by one Steve Gennaro. Shout out to Steve.
Yeah, I love him.
A really good guy and a very enthusiastic Toronto man. A very enthusiastic Toronto man. But we should have listened. You being from Toronto and knowing both as well as you do, we're clearly better placed to advise us.
And my wife, who's American, was driving our son back from university and had to drive through Toronto yesterday, and she was took the time as she was sitting in traffic to call me and remind me she fucking hates that city.
It must have been a nice 5 hours for her driving through Toronto traffic.
About right.
Lovely. We did, of course, also attend together a Toronto FC LA Galaxy game.
Yes. That
we were of the opinion that one Stephen Jeppard was going to play in, and of course Stevie wasn't there. So it was still an enjoyable evening.
It was a great way to spend an evening, David.
It was. It really was. So when we did that first podcast together, that is the 2nd of December 2015. So just over 9 years ago. And that was the beginning of the Jurgen Klopp era.
Yes.
So now we're
significant for another reason. And it's going to feature in our conversation, I think.
Okay.
That was the night when we christened our captain, leader, legend, Jordan Henderson, the mouth breather.
Is right. It's right. There are many people. But so I've gotten quite a lot of stick over the years for my commentary on Jordan Henderson, and I've had a few people really have a go at me over that. Make him a mouth breather. I tried to point out that it was actually you that said that, not me.
Yes, I will take all the slings and arrows for that one, with pride, because the man breathes from his mouth. And as I've said to you at the time, I'm not saying this is the case, but it makes him look like a very stupid individual.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Like he did great. He played some really great games. He had some great stretches for the club. But he does feature in the story I think that we're going to have a discussion about, because I believe that he and his future actually have a big part to play in where we are today. He has that more cryptic lead.
Yeah, I am of that belief as well. The thing always was people were unwilling to accept that you might be so mean because you're a very well-presented, well-spoken Canadian gentleman, and I'm a thug from Ireland. So,
but I'm from Etobicoke in the west end of near Rexdale.
People don't know. People don't know that that's where you're from. They only know where you are. They don't know where you're from.
So now we're at the beginning of a new era for Liverpool with Arne Slot in charge. So what are your early impressions? Because it's been, 6 months. We've had whatever it is, 20 odd games, and things have gone very well. But what do you make of him as a man, as well as a manager? Like, what are your impressions when you listen to him speak and how he presents himself? He's obviously a very different character to Jurgen.
So it's impossible to talk about Arne without talking about Kloppo. So you have to understand, and you know this, Dave, I idolize Jurgen Klopp. I am absolutely smitten with the guy in the way that people who are about 15 years older than I am are still entranced by Bill Shankly. Shanks was just a little bit before my time as a Liverpool supporter. I was Paisley era. But there are so many things about Jurgen Klopp that transcend football that I think are just sensational. I have learned so much about how to do things, how to move through life, how to lead people by watching that guy. I actually, in some of my work, I've used examples of how his first 3.5 years with the club as lessons for how to build an organization. So that's my preamble because I adore the guy.
I think that's very fair because I think with Kloppo, there's a cultural impact, isn't there? There's an impact that transcends football.
It's profound, and no rock left unturned. Having said that, I think that the club is better off for Arne being in this role now. And I think, obviously we have the benefit of hindsight, but they have picked an absolutely superb person for this role. So I watched his press conference yesterday, and I was so impressed about how natural and at ease he seems to be at the moment. And there are ups and downs as a football manager. So, he's had pretty smooth. He hasn't had much of the rough. It's been mostly the smooth so far, but that's been of his own creation. But watching him talk about football and his degree of candor is really so impressive. So I was texting with a friend of mine, George, last night, and another one, Gautam. We were talking about the two of them, and I was like, Arne's the guy who you go for a pint with after work, and you get on to number 2, and then you both decide you're going to have dinner, and you spend the evening over dinner having a really deep and intense conversation, and you leave, a little late, but shaking hands and believe you've made a friend for life. Jurgen is the guy you go out with, you have a pint after work, 1 becomes 3, you move on to karaoke, and then a club, then you black out, and you wake up the next morning in Ibiza, and everyone's laughing their heads off.
Yeah. And somehow you've gotten tattooed in the night. You've been on a boat,
Exactly.
and there's an animal that you've liberated from somewhere that you've just decided is your new best friend. This is exactly the thing. Like Arne feels a lot more like Bob Paisley.
Yeah.
Who you want to be around and could be around all the time,
Yeah.
Jurgen is the guy that you want to be around him, but you don't want him around all the time because it would become too frenetic.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be able to match his energy levels. And I think Jurgen is to our generation, to the generation that's coming after. Well, you're slightly older than I am, but your generation, mine, and the ones coming after, Jurgen is our Shankly.
Yeah.
And the hope will be that Arne is our Paisley.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we've constantly seen over the years people in all different walks of life. And you work in, political consulting. So your line of work is very much outside the sport sphere. Yeah. But you're referring to Jurgen in your work. And we see other people like CEOs of major companies doing the same thing. And yet, the other day I saw an excerpt from Angela Merkel's book where she referenced Bill Shankly.
No.
So a similar type of impact that Shankly and his bombastic personality and his views on the world and his way of simplifying a way of thinking and a way of building and of character. All of the traits of the two men are so similar. And obviously, a similar thing happened with both, which is that they burnt out. Like Shankly himself, when he stepped away from, everybody's seen the video of the journalist going around the city. I think he's from the BBC, going by the city of Liverpool, asking people, like, what do you think of the news that Bill Shankly has resigned as Liverpool manager? And people don't believe him. They're in floods of tears. Now, they didn't know the news. It hadn't been announced publicly. It was just a journalist knew, and there was going to be a press conference. This time around, it broke obviously a little bit differently because of social media and stuff. But the reaction was so similar. People didn't want to believe it. People were in a daze. Like for days afterwards, there were people like really struggling to come to terms with the fact that this man was not going to be in their lives anymore.
Yeah.
And it was from speaking to people who were around in the Shankly times, it was exactly the same for them. It was like this family member had told you that they were going to die the next day or something. It was like some part of your life had just been ripped away and you didn't know how to react. But with Bob and with Arne, it's this new reassuring figure that's not the same type of personality, but he's someone that you feel great comfort in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And just a funny aside before we get onto the main event here. So I was another OG, Harinder Singh, graciously gave up his ticket for Bournemouth away so I could go in January last year. I was over in Europe on business and stuff, and he wasn't going to be able to go to the match because of family commitments. And so I had the chance to be at that 4-0, and it was a remarkable game. The side played brilliantly. Darwin was on fire. And then I had some other business and flew home on the day that Jurgen resigned and was literally about to take off when one of my colleagues at work, my business partner, sent me a text to say, sad news about the manager, end of an era. And then literally we took off and I had no connectivity. I did not know what he was talking about. And, after about an hour, I managed to get the in-flight. I don't care what it costs. I got to figure out what's going on here. And the news came through and I felt it was weird. It was like being in limbo, but you come to terms with these things and the club has done a great job moving on. I think a lot more preparation went into this than, I will say, there's an interesting thought exercise that a lot more preparation went into Jurgen's departure than than may be the conventional wisdom.
Oh, definitely. I mean, purely the fact that it was 2 or 3 months after he told the club that he was going to leave.
Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file. Abbott Diabetes Care. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the new generative AI assistant from AWS. Many tasks can make business slow, like wading through mud. Help! Luckily, there's a faster, easier, less messy choice. Amazon Q can securely understand your business data to help you streamline tasks, like summarizing quarterly results or doing complex analyses in no time. Q got this. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
Add excitement to your holidays with Ohio Lottery Holiday Scratch-Offs, including $1 holiday cash and $5 holiday lucky times 10, or holiday bonus millions with a 200 times multiplier and a $2 million top prize. Plus, enjoy second chance drawings where you can win 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times the price of your ticket. Scratch-Offs make the perfect gift, and best of all, there's no wrapping required. Lottery players are subject to Ohio laws and commission regulations. Play responsibly.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
That it became public knowledge. The fact that it didn't leak at all meant that there was a considered approach to not allowing anybody outside of a very tight-knit group to know this. And obviously, in that time, the club were putting plans in place, like how do we go from here? I would imagine Jurgen, being the person he is, being the manager that he is, was very much involved in quite a bit of that planning. Like, who are the best people to lead us forward? How do we take the next steps? And I said at the time, and I still believe it to this day, and it's something I want to get on to with you with some of the media coverage. Jurgen's legacy at Liverpool didn't end the day he left. It will continue for a generation.
Totally.
Because of the building blocks he put in place, because of the methodology he brought to the club, the approaches that he has towards team building, towards individual management, towards the selection of the people that he wants in his orbit, whether that's players, coaching staff, whatever. Like the much vaunted no dickhead policy. That's from Jurgen. That's something that he learned as a young manager with minds, that you cannot have disruptive people in the group.
Yeah.
So the best way to avoid having those disruptive people is not to let them in and then try and get rid of them. That's very difficult. It's to not let them in the first place.
Right. Better a hole than an asshole.
Exactly.
By the way, I used that line when I was advising a client that they needed to get rid of someone in their organization, even though they held. And the the guy who was talking to you almost fell off his chair laughing. But it crystallized his thinking. And by the way, the guy they got rid of was a Man United supporter.
That's a reason enough to get rid of him. They're going through some tough
Dave,
times.
I wanna. So I agree with all of that. I wanna test out a hypothesis with you.
Okay.
That I'm gonna talk about the three key players to the three key architects of Liverpool's success in the, let's call it the Klopp era, the Champions League, and then the year of champions of everything. And then what came after are three people: Jurgen Klopp, Michael Edwards, and Mike Gordon. There was articles about the three legs of this triumvirate and the three legs of the stool, or whatever you want to call it. They are the three key players in all of this. And I think there is a scenario. This is not supported by evidence, but there's been a narrative that has followed a sequence that is as follows: that Jurgen was burnt out, decided in November 2023 that he was done. He had signed an extension, as you recall, in late April 2022 to take him to 2026. And he said, I'm gonna see this out till the end of 2024. That was the original length of the contract. And he just couldn't do the forward planning anymore and such. So your man comes to the club and says, in November, I'm ready to go. Let's keep the lid on it. Talk to Peter Kravitz, talk to Pep, Linders. And then they on January 23rd, 2024, they shared the news. Thereafter, the club was scrambling, looking for who could fill the role of director of football so they could start a search for the new manager. Sabi is going to be the next manager, so on and so forth. And then in March, they end up with Michael Edwards agreeing to come back. So I've got a different theory. All right. I want to put forward a hypothesis, not a conspiracy theory, and this is not supported by any hard evidence. I'm just suggesting perhaps that the circumstances of Jurgen's departure go back to August 31st, 2021. And this is where our friend the mouth breather comes in. August 31st, 2021, after a horrible season where we managed to scrape third with a remarkable run at the end of the season, Jurgen makes a power play to extend Jordan Henderson's contract for 4 years. 31-year-old Jordan Henderson. November 2021, so 2 months later, Michael Edwards writes his letter to say that he's leaving, and in early 2022 decides he's leaving. And there was a lot of speculation. They keep a pretty tight lid on things behind the scenes, but a lot of speculation that, Jurgen overrode Michael Edwards. Michael Edwards, who hates age in players, overrode his advice and said, we've got to sign Jordan. Jurgen has many strengths, but sentimentality is one of his weaknesses. So Michael Edwards decides he's leaving. We have that great 2021-22. And then in late April, so Michael Edwards is out of the picture. Julian Ward has taken over. Jurgen's like, you know what? He and I have been fighting a lot over the last couple of years. He's gone. Ola, why don't we extend this for another 2 years? And Ola says, let's do it. And on April 28th, 2022, he extends. Now, roll forward to late. And we have that great year, win 2 cups, but lose the 2 big trophies we really want. Julian Ward takes over, does a good job. But we get into 2022, season starts off, it's a bit shaky. Julian Ward is barely a year into the job and says, I got to go. Signed Salah to the extension, but he's like, I'm done. Ian Graham says he's leaving. So obviously something is not right and the rumors always were that Pep, Linders, and Jurgen Klopp were calling the shots on transfers. We signed Darwin, who I love, but, didn't fit the model that we're used to. So there's a lot of buzz in the background, a lot of speculation that the balance of power has shifted to the coaching staff. Jurgen's now even more empowered because he's got his extension to 2026. And then in late 2022, the club decides they're going to start testing the waters to see what their share of FSG's share of Liverpool would fetch on the market. Chelsea's just been sold for massive amounts of money. Mike Gordon leads that process, takes a bit of a backseat from the actual running of the club. Billy Hogan starts playing a bigger role. So we have a terrible season in 2022-23. Mike Gordon's a year into trying to flog the club. We don't really have any takers. And I think at that stage, there's a plausible scenario that Mike Gordon says, guys, we're not going to sell the club, and I can't continue in the role that I've been playing. I think in that window is when Jurgen starts getting wind that Michael Edwards could be coming back. Now, remember, he's initiated, under my scenario here, initiated an extension for a further 2 years when he's seen the back of Michael Edwards, and now he's leaving. I believe, there was something strange about the announcement in January. Looking at Billy Hogan, he looked extremely calm. And so you have all this background noise about who's going to be so Jurgen resigns in January, announces resignation in January. And there's all this background noise about who's going to be the next director of football. Is it going to be this person, that person? And lo and behold, March rolls around, Michael Edwards is back. And strangely, within weeks, we hear that Richard Hughes is going to be the next director of football at Liverpool. Richard Hughes, who's an old pal of Michael Edwards. Richard Hughes, who had given Bournemouth notice in December of 2023. So, wheels within wheels. I think that there is a sequence of events that looks very different than the one that the media have tended to cover, which is Liverpool managed to play a blinder by pulled the coals out of the fire, as we say in German. Managed to tempt Michael Edwards back with the CEO of football role as sort of an 11th hour attempt. There's a scenario where this was actually all a lot better planned. They start to inform Jurgen late in 2023 that it looks like Edwards is going to come back in a bigger and more expansive role. Maybe try to persuade him to stay. And he goes, guys, I'm done. Not doing this again. And I think it's worth pointing out the Richard Hughes resignation in late 23, I think is interesting. Also the fact that the club has not exercised any objections in Jurgen taking on the role that he's taking on at Red Bull on the 1st of January 2025, when notionally...
This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian makes the team collaboration software that powers enterprise businesses around the world, including over 80% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian's AI-powered software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, you'll have more time to do the work that matters. In fact, Atlassian customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the...
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your...
windshield wipers. eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay, things people love.
Looking for a pickup truck to get just about anything done? Look no further. The Chevy Silverado EV isn't just the most powerful Silverado ever, with next-level towing capability and technology. It also offers game-changing versatility with the available multi-flex midgate and tailgate, which means Silverado EV helps you carry large, bulky, and oddly shaped items up to nearly 11 feet in length. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. Visit Chevrolet.com to learn more.
His extended contract would have taken him into 2026 and would have involved at least some kind of consideration. So,
and compensation by the rules of how we operate in football. Jurgen, to take a job between when he left and the summer of 2026 would have either needed sign off from Liverpool or compensation to Liverpool, because he would be contracted to the club, whether or not he's taking salary. And like you said, there was no compensation. There was an immediate, no problem, away you go.
No problem. And also it also explains maybe this scenario. Like, again, I'm just asking people to do a thought exercise here. It would also explain why Schmatke is dropped in for a 6-month consulting contract to do actually a bang up job, has to be said.
While sitting on a beach in Ibiza as well. What a job for him though in football, right? What a guy! Like, takes a job, gets well paid. I think he set foot in Liverpool 3 times in his entire tenure. I think there's a lot of truth in what you've actually said. Now, look, I don't pretend to be an in the know or anything like that, but I speak to an awful lot of people. So you pick up little bits and pieces from people directly or as secondhand bits of information from others that speak to different journalists. And it seems like the tension between Jurgen and Michael Edwards really began in the summer of 2019, where Edwards had one plan and Jurgen sort of fought him on it. Edwards wanted to build on the success of winning the European Cup, and Jurgen wanted more continuity. He didn't want to disrupt the apple cart. He felt that we've come so close to the league, we've won the European Cup, this group can go and win the league next season. Let's play it out one more year with this group. So Edwards apparently gets the hump a little bit that summer. Then the following summer, we've won the league. So Jurgen is vindicated.
Yeah.
We've won the league. And Jurgen uses that vindication to push through a move for Thiago, who Edwards was against, not because of the player, but because of the injury track record and age. Both of which are not things that Michael Edwards wants to get involved with. We fast forward into that season, the 2021 season, which was horrific for many reasons, largely because the entire world is just on fire with the pandemic. Jurgen's mum passes away. And we see with Jurgen that the strain of everything, his job, his personal life, is really taking a toll on him. And he visually aged 5 years in about 6 weeks. We had that horrific run. And Edwards kind of pulled a power play of, you had your way, I'm taking control again. Fine. We get into that summer 2021. Edwards says to Henderson, you're not getting a contract extension. Henderson goes crying to the press. Jurgen then thinks, I've still got enough political capital here. I've got credit built up, and I'm going to cash that in now, and I'm going to force this contract extension for Henderson. That is the straw that breaks the camel's back between Jurgen and Michael Edwards. And as you said, then Edwards announces his resignation a couple of months later. We get to the summer of 2022. Julian Edwards is in. Jurgen again overrides him. Ward doesn't have the same gravitas, the same sway as Michael Edwards would have. And we get a situation where Darwin is forced through when he's not the pick of the recruitment staff or the analytics people. Christopher Nkunku would have been. And Julian Ward, who had worked 9 years towards his dream job, decides 6 months in, I'm not doing this anymore, and walks. We have a disastrous 22-23 season, and I think this is where your hypothesis really hits. We get into that summer, 2023, and Jurgen allegedly is the word I will stress here, Jurgen blocks the appointment of a couple of sporting director candidates that the club have lined up. Jurgen doesn't want someone coming in over him, and the club agree, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll sign someone that will not necessarily report to you, but you'll have kind of equal say or whatever, and Jurgen doesn't really want that, and no high-end sporting director is going to agree to come in that situation anyway. They will want to come in and know that there's a correct chain of command, which is that the manager reports to them.
Yeah.
So we end up with Jörg Schmadtke, and like you say, like he did some good things, fair play. But it is notable that on the biggest deal of the summer, which was the Moises Caicedo deal, Jörg Schmadtke was nowhere to be seen. It was Mike Gordon and Billy Hogan who were trying to get that deal over the line.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of that summer, with the frustration of the Caicedo deal falling apart and being a little bit slow off the mark with certain things and the bad season the year before, and also an acknowledgement that Jurgen has quietly started to transition himself from manager to more general manager, and Pepin Linders has become more of a head coach than an assistant. I think the club said, we're not doing this. We're putting back in place a proper structure. My belief is that Jurgen went to them and said, this is what I would like to do. I have 2 years left on my deal. I would like to become the sporting director, the de facto sporting director, and Pepin becomes the head coach officially. At the end of this season, I think that's what we should do. It was very clear watching Liverpool the last 2 seasons that tactical plan was Pepin Linders' blueprint. It was the same thing he did at NEC. It's the same thing he's just failed with Red Bull Salzburg. I think Jurgen might have instigated that conversation of, let's make this official. I will be the sporting director and I will oversee, but let's have Pepin as the head coach. The players know him. It's a good continuity plan. And I think the club said no.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.